was yelling over the music for a second. On behalf of the Black Student Association and Student Government, I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming and sharing your evening with us. Just to point out really quick, the purpose of tonight's debate isn't to necessarily have a winning side and a losing side, but rather for the panel and the audience to all engage and kind of get informed together about the process, about the views of each side, and to, rather than kind of separate ourselves like Republicans think this way, Democrats think that way, is to find what we all agree on, and to see that there are some differences, but before we're Republicans or before we're Democrats or independents, we're all Americans first. And everyone's interest is the betterment of the country. And I think if we all keep that in mind, then this evening will go extremely well and we'll all get a lot out of it. So again, thank you for coming. We'd like to give a special thanks to Mr. Wilson for helping out so much with today. He did a lot. So if everybody could give a round of applause for Wilson. Also, and Johnny Blunt, SGA president, for dealing with me and my flightiness and always being really forgiving and never getting sick of me and ignoring my phone calls. And also Dean Barnett, who has done a lot for the BSA and SGA this year in general and this event in particular. So I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Dr. Benjamin Head, who is the librarian here at CBU. And we're going to get started with introductions from each panelist. So thank you for coming again, and here we go.
Well, good evening, all. Students, faculty, guests, and our panelists here. I want to welcome you to Christian Brothers University. This is an event that we've had for several years now. And I participated in it in the past, and what I come away with is that I've learned things and got things clarified that I didn't have before. What we want you to do after this election and this debate, we want you to be able to go and vote and not have a second thought or regret afterwards, no matter who's elected. So the purpose of this is to provide additional information to that you already have, so you can make an informed decision. And our panelists here are very equipped to provide that information. And I want to thank the BSA and SGA for providing this opportunity for us. I want to introduce our panelists here. To my direct left here is Dr. Brittingham, Robert Brittingham, a longtime professor here in economics and management, who has participated before and is quite knowledgeable. I would ask you to pay close attention to what Dr. Brittingham has to say. Okay. Also, we have Justin Joy, who's chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party. And I'm sorry. Sorry about that, I apologize. But no matter what party he's with, he's going to inform you on Governor Romney's positions and tell you why you should understand him better and maybe possibly vote for him if that's your choice and the facts support that choice. Okay? Excellent. Thank you so much. On my right here, I have Pastor Keith Norman, pastor of the First Baptist Church here in Memphis, and I'm sure not only will he provide the side of his political party, his political views, but he's here in the community, and he can connect the issues to our local situation here. That's what we expect. Also, we have Dr. Max Maloney here, and we all know Dr. Maloney. He's a deep thinker. He teaches philosophy and religion, so listen closely so that when you vote, your conscience will not bother you anymore. All right. Now, we have a few rules now. I'm not Candy Crowley, I'm not Lara. You noticed that already, did you? So we're going to have our rules here that are different from theirs. Rule 1. We're supposed to have 10 questions. We're going to have 7 questions that were handed in and prepared. We're going to have 3 questions that will come from the audience. Okay? Let's be prepared. And we probably have some back and forth at some point as we go through this. Each panelist, each panelist, that long day for that. Each panelist will have the opportunity to spend 2 minutes answering each question. Okay? And they'll have 2 minutes to give an introduction, and then have 2 minutes to give a closing. And audience members will have an opportunity to ask 3 questions. I suppose that will be selected by our sponsors, as I understand. So, as they say in certain TV events and in other events, let's get ready to debate. I wasn't going to say roll or whatever. Let's get ready to debate. All right? Our panelists ready? All right. I'm going to do the questions from my left to my right and give each panelist an opportunity to answer. Where's my timekeeper, please? I noticed that. Oh, thank you so much. Good work. I would communicate the time from my timekeeper to the panelists so that we can keep everything on track. Okay. All right. First question. I'm sorry. Let's have our introduction. 2 minutes each. Apologize for that. Okay. Sorry, here, my left.
Well, good evening, everyone, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Head, and thank you to the BSA and SGA. This is a great program that you all have put together, and it's just great to see the turnout here. I have been doing the political thing, as I call it now, for a number of years, going back to my high school days. Very clearly remember the 2000 election, George W. Bush versus Al Gore. That may seem like a lifetime ago for some of you all in here, but it really wasn't that long ago. I was a senior in college at the time, and it was fascinating to listen to the debate. I actually happened to be going to Wake Forest University at the time, and one of the presidential debates was hosted at that campus, and it was a very unique, certainly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to see that up close and personal. Obviously, after the election, we didn't have a winner for some time, but it was still very, I guess inspiring probably is the best word to use, to see that even with all of the disputes, all of the back and forth, all of the problems related to the election, at the end of the day, there was a peaceful transition of power. Very few places in this world, very few places during our history have we seen such examples like that, to where the rule of law prevails and then decisions are made and we have that transition of power. So I think you know, that's just a personal story, a personal testament of mine that I observed when I was in college not that long ago. But anyway, I certainly, like I said, it's great to see everyone here tonight. Quite frankly, I think that younger people, and I'll still include myself in that for now, but I think younger people kind of get overlooked when it comes to the political process. People write them off, that they're not engaged, they don't care about what's going on, and they're not going to vote. So it's really great to see everybody here, and let's have a good discussion this evening. Thanks again.
Next we have Dr. Brittingham.
2000, huh? I have voted in 13 presidential elections, and don't do the math on that one. And I have voted for the winning candidate in 5 of those 13 elections. I was disappointed with the results of the other 8 elections, but in none of those 8 losses did I believe that the very existence of the United States as a constitutional republic was at stake. I believe deeply, and I know this is not a humorous comment, but I believe deeply that this election is different. And I know everybody can say that, but this is number 14, and I think is different. That if change isn't made at the highest level of government, it might take our country decades to recover, if it ever does. Going beyond specific policy differences between Republicans and Democrats in areas such as the Middle East, healthcare, the federal deficit, illegal immigration, government regulation of businesses and consumers, the right kind of person to put on the Supreme Court, and the proper size and function of the U.S. military, The fundamental political and economic issue in this election is this, and I'm speaking as a economist here, using terms that some of the students will recognize. Should, and this is the question, should the basic decisions about how to use limited resources to satisfy unlimited wants be made primarily by free people in free markets, or primarily by some type of government command and control? Democrats are almost unanimous in their preference for government control, while a growing number of Republicans, not all of them, but a growing number, seem to be in favor of free market capitalism. And capitalism is not, in my lexicon, a dirty word. Of course, a major moral issue today, if not the main moral issue, is abortion. And here the differences between the two parties are very, very sharply drawn. To sum up, there are clear differences between the two parties and their candidates in this election. And serious consequences will stem from the outcome. And I respectfully but strongly ask you to study the issues, especially the core issues I have mentioned, and then make your vote a serious and thoughtful one. And I am Bob Brittingham, and I approve of this message.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for all attending this evening, participating in this conversation. As many of you know, I come here as a supporter of the re-election of Barack Obama, but I think I should be honest with you. Dr. Brittingham has given such a good example. I find myself on many issues far to the left of the president. On economic issues and issues of foreign policy in particular, I am a dyed-in-the-wool progressive. I always find it striking when President Obama's opponents describe him. They call him a radical and a socialist. My response is always, I wish. But the reality is that that is not the case. The truth of the matter is that Obama is a profoundly moderate candidate. He looks, perhaps, extreme from the perspective of the Republican Party, which has veered sharply to the right over the past few years. And in that, through that lens, then maybe a small government capitalist advocate like Obama seems like a radical. But that is not true. The reason I'm here supporting Obama, and the reason I supported him in the last election, is precisely because he is a moderate. There are radicals that are running for election in this campaign. They're not President Obama and Vice President Biden. They are rather the Republican candidates, Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. Now, over the past few weeks, we've seen candidate Romney moderate many of the positions that he held during the Republican primary, positions which, in the context of the primary, were perhaps necessary to win the nomination of his party. I can't say who the real Mitt Romney is. He may be the moderate we're seeing right now. He may be the more conservative fellow, the radical fellow that we saw in the last few months. But I can say one thing, that a President Romney would be governed by the radical agenda of the Republican Party, and that his policies would be the policies of the Republican Congress and of the electorate that he would have to appease in a re-election campaign. It's precisely because he is a moderate, then, that I am here, supporting him.
Thank you. Next we have Pastor Keith Norman, First Baptist Church.
Thank you very much. My name is Keith Norman. I am the senior pastor of First Baptist Church, but I'm also the immediate past president of the Shelby County Democratic Party. So often people ask the question, how is it or why did you ever serve in politics? And I'm deeply involved. Is that I understand the relationship between what happens in the realm of government, politics, and how it actually shows up in communities. And I understand also if we don't get involved, what happens is that people make decisions on our behalf, such as what I believe Governor Romney is attempting to do right now. I've studied the works of some of the people who are sitting at the table, and we've had an opportunity to respectfully agree and disagree on some occasions. I love the fact that we're engaged in this debate right now, and I want to make one thing clear that was said in the introduction, is that we didn't really come here to win or lose. We came to win. We really did. Exactly my intent when I walked in the room is to be here to influence each of you to go out and to vote your conscience, but most certainly to hope that that is for President Barack Obama. We need to understand how long it takes for cycles to develop in American politics and government. We need to understand the impact of the decisions that we make and the longevity of those decisions for many years to come. And I believe oftentimes people come before us and they try to give us what I call a smoke and mirrors game in politics, and say, this is what we can do and it can happen overnight or happen in 2 years or in 4 years. But whenever you have had 8 years of policy that have gone in the wrong direction, where you've had tax cuts that favored people who are at the top realm of our economic strata, it takes a while for those things to really be undone. I'm sure Dr. Brittingham will look at the numbers and really play them out for us tonight, because it takes a while for a cycle to turn. And so we're seeing right now the positive upswing. We're seeing the best job numbers we've seen in a long time. We're seeing housing increase, which is what we've been waiting on. And so now we're right at the point where we really need to see another term of President Barack Obama. So we want to look at his policies on tonight and help you to understand why we need 4 more years of this president.
We're going to have some pretty heated discussions. We got one who wants to win, we got others who didn't say they want to win, but I'm sure they do. So our first question.
They've changed their position already.
This is for our first question. Many of you here are college students, and what do college students have to do? Pay to go to college. So our first question to all the panelists, we'll get 2 minutes each for the question. That is, college.
You get 2 minutes.
2 minutes each side. Yes, this side too. Okay. First question. College tuition has risen consistently, and students have struggled to find ways to afford the increase in cost. In your opinion, which candidate has the most effective approach to decreasing the college education cost that students have to pay, and why do you have that position? Let's start with this on my left. I need you to repeat the question.
No. Oh, no. Nice, quick, easy 2-minute answer on college tuition. A little bit of history. I looked up in the catalog where they used to actually publish the tuition. One of my first years here teaching, 1990, and the tuition for a semester was $3,400. So there has been a difference, and it has gone up quite a bit more than inflation has over that time. And there's a number of different reasons. One is simply that a lot, in terms of state universities, a lot of the states have cut their budgets, so the schools, those public schools have been in put more in buying. There are many more regulations of colleges now and universities, and those cost money to implement. Again, not too many years ago, I think our security on campus was one brother that walked around and did that, and we had one registrar who also doubled as something else. I think it's the dean, and one secretary between the two of them. So the expenses have gone up quite a bit. Another problem, again, if you get back to the regulation of it, there have been some abuses with Veterans Administration payments. So there have been a couple of laws passed to control that. And in the big universities, I know it costs us, I don't know how much, but in some of the larger schools, it can be $200,000 a year in staff just to do that, and that's going to raise the cost. The other is our accreditation, because accreditation is supposed to assure quality. Sometimes it's used to keep new forms of education or whatever from coming in. So the online schools and the like would help. I believe that bigger government is adding to the cost, so my solution will be smaller government. One, but there's a lot of others. This is very complicated.
All right. Thank you. This side.
Thank you. No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. It's not surprising, I think, that Dr. Brittingham was able to speak in only very general terms about the problems facing college students today. It's not the case, of course, that candidate Romney has had the opportunity to do much, and it's been a consistent feature of his campaign that he's failed to mention many specifics that he would enact. Happily, a supporter of President Obama can point to a number of very specific things that he has done to help college students out. Let me just mention a few. In 2010, he managed to have passed the American Opportunity Tax Credit, which has helped 9.4 million students and families in 2011 forward higher education. During the same period, he doubled funding for Pell Grants so that more Americans can go to college. This fall, he worked with Congress to prevent student loan interest rates from doubling. He started a new program called Pay As You Earn, which caps monthly federal student loan repayments at 10% of monthly discretionary income. He's instituted a new set of standards called Race to the Top, which encourages states to raise their standards for college and career readiness. And his administration has invested $2 billion in community colleges to help our less fortunate and well-prepared students. In the next 4 years, he set the goal of cutting tuition, in student programs will cut tuition growth in half over the next decade, and he's planning to double campus-based student aid incentives and help campuses keep their student tuition down by incentivizing those that are successful. Now, let me just mention a few things that Governor Romney has accomplished. As governor, he made deep cuts to higher education, such that by the end of his term, I had 30 seconds after the dime came up.
15 seconds.
15 seconds, okay.
So you have 10 more.
He made deep cuts to higher education while he's governor of Massachusetts. By the end of his term, college costs have raised 63%. During the same period, he cut funding to community colleges. As a result, by 2006, community college costs in Massachusetts were 59% higher than the national average. I think Obama is the clear winner on the issue.
Thank you very much, panelists. Our next question, about one of the candidates. The question is, Governor Romney's previous political record contradicts his current platform. I guess the easiest example would be health care, environmental concerns, and the question is, should we be worried that he is not sincere, and can he be an effective president? We'll start with on my left, right here.
Thank you very much. It is clear that Governor Romney flip-flops a lot. He'll make a public statement and recognize that he is not in touch with the American people. And once he is with his advisors, he will go back and adjust those statements according to the crowd he's in front of. As a matter of fact, if you Google Detroit Free Press and you get their 2012 comparisons, you'll find the platform of Governor Romney. And as you look at Governor Romney's platform, you'll see where it changes literally every 3 to 6 months or so. And so the question of how can we trust him in the presidency, it would be very difficult because Governor Romney's advisors all have different positions, and it's all based on the wealth that they hold. Governor Romney is out of touch with the average American person. When he said, first of all, and this goes back to an earlier question regarding education, he suggested we should get the money from our parents. I'll tell you that if I went through this room and polled everybody and said how many of you could go to your parents and borrow the money to go to school, I can tell you right now there'll be a lot of people out of the room because we can't just go to mom and say, hey, I'd like to borrow this money, or dad, I'd borrow this money to go to school. And so Governor Romney, being as out of touch as he is, he flip-flops according to the crowd that he's in front of. If you look at the position on health care, at first, he had a program very similar to what we refer to as Obamacare. But now that the Obamacare plan has passed, Governor Romney feeling the need to distance himself because the people who are Republicans who are against this particular plan, and he wants their support and wants their particular votes, he now flip-flops on it. But if you go back and look at his plan when he was governor of Massachusetts, he proposed a very similar plan of which Obama actually modeled his plan after. And so when you look at this particular candidate, he's back and forth, he's all over the place. I'm trying to keep my eye on the light back here, but at the same time, let's look at environmental concerns. Okay.
Well, I disagree that his political record, especially during his time as governor of Massachusetts, contradicts the positions that he has taken in this presidential campaign. If you look at what Governor Romney did in Massachusetts as governor to what he's talking about doing as president of the United States, there's some fundamental differences there. It is not the same. Governor Romney recognizes that we live in a republic, and each state needs to make its own decision as to what type of laws, what type of systems, including healthcare systems, work for that particular state. Governor Romney implemented a program in Massachusetts that worked for his state when he was governor. For instance, here in Tennessee, we have TennCare. So issues like that need to be left up to the states. And that is a fundamental difference that we're talking about here. And so there is no contradiction in that regard. And when you're looking at just things in general, when you're talking about the environmental concerns, same thing there. If he was doing something in Massachusetts as governor, what he's talking about now, it's a completely different analysis. You're looking at it from the federal government's perspective. And what he did as governor made sense at the time for his state, but now he has to look at it at a national perspective to make sense for our country here. And Dr. Maloney mentioned, he asked who the real Mitt Romney is when we're talking about these kind of things. Well, I firmly believe that his fundamental position is that free markets and not government is the system as to how we should be picking winners and losers in our economy. And of course we need some common sense regulations, but at the end of the day, it's people, not government regulators, who should be making the decisions for how we lead our life. Okay. Can we get a clarification on that? Are you raising it at 15 seconds left and then holding it up?
15 and time.
Okay.
Third raising is the time.
And you're going to hold it and just keep it held up when it's time?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Held it for a while. That's time.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right. Thank you.
Do you want to move to 3 minutes question? Does 2 minutes feel like not enough time?
We can.
Okay.
We can. We can do that. I think that'll work. So you keep up with that, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Or 1 minute of rebuttal after a response?
Yeah. Okay, so 2 minutes per question, 1 minute.
Okay.
Rebuttal.
That's fine. That's fine. 1 minute on each side.
Okay.
All right. Our next question. President Obama insists that Obamacare is the best thing for the country. But how can this be true if it increases the country's debt and endangers the existence of Medicare? All right, let's start with the panelists on my left, and we'll have 2 minutes, then 1 minute rebuttal on each side. You can begin.
Actually, you hear me without the microphone?
Yes.
I'm comfortable, I think, without that, so let's just go with that. I think Obamacare, as it's called now, a passed law, a healthcare law, is a problem for not just the reasons that are given on the question, but I think this will be a fundamental transformation, and not a good one, of our economy. We spend a lot on healthcare in this country because we have a lot of access to things that aren't available in the rest of the world. That's one reason that it's expensive. And we spend about 17% of our GDP on healthcare, and that's bigger than the total GDP of all but about, I think, 8 or 9 countries in the world. And what this will ultimately lead to, because the Democrats have said this is only the first step, that what they want basically is what's called a single-payer system, where the government would basically be in control of all health decisions. And they've been after this for 40 years. So they can give the argument that, well, it's because there were 37 million that did not have health care, and that's a phony statistic if you look at the numbers. But they've been trying for 40 years, you've got different for those numbers, and it's basically a set of controls and government regulation. I'm going to ask I didn't ask permission to do this, so I'll just do it and you can mow me out later. This is an organization chart of what the Obamacare is going to look like, or is looking like as they're organizing. And I've got about 25 copies. I don't have enough for everybody. We're a poor school in terms of running out color copies. So I'm just going to ask that you kind of pass them around and look at them. And this is the organization. There are free market ways to deal with healthcare. We are adopting basically the European, the British, and the Canadian method. Is that the first time?
No, that's the last one.
That's the last
That's common.
one. Okay, there are better free market solutions, all of which are excluded.
Thank you. Let me address the specifics of this question, because I think the question betrays a fundamental misunderstanding, and a misunderstanding which has unfortunately been encouraged by the Romney campaign. Let's deal first of all with the notion that the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, endangers Medicare. The claim that the Romney campaign makes is that the Affordable Care Act strips $716 billion from Medicare. That's just not the case. What the Affordable Care Act does is reduce payments to healthcare providers and insurers, thus saving $716 billion, which has the consequence of increasing the longevity of the Medicare trust fund by 8 years. So rather than endangering Medicare, the Affordable Care Act actually preserves Medicare for longer. Now, what about the debt? This is a more complicated issue, I think, and the question here concerns the relationship between deficit spending and debt, which it's important to distinguish. There is a clear relationship, obviously. If we are engaged in deficit spending, then one of the ways in which we can cover the deficit is by borrowing. Here too, however, the question misunderstands the situation. Not only does the American Care Act not increase the deficit, thus risking an increase in the national debt, but it actually reduces the deficit by controlling healthcare costs by the government. In contrast, according to Republican Speaker John Boehner, repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which Romney has promised to do on day one of an administration, actually increases the deficit by $109 billion, thus, of course, requiring, absent tax increases, an increase in the national debt. So Obamacare does not increase the national debt, it decreases it, or at least helps to decrease it, and repeal of Obamacare would actually increase the federal deficit, thus risking an increase in the debt levels.
Want to make a response to this?
I like the expression that Dr. Maloney just used, controlling healthcare costs by the government. That should terrify you. That the government, look at the diagram that I gave you, will decide how much should be spent. Right? You have to have some rationing of everything because resources are limited. The question is, should individuals and the market do it? There are systems, they're called medical savings accounts. I would look those up, where people have some control over how much they spend. Look it up and see that's a good free market solution that is banned specifically by the Act. And again, we're at this fundamental issue. Is government the best way to solve our problems? Because there's no free lunch. And I can show you statistics, I don't have them up here, that this is an extraordinarily expensive bill. They did some really clever accounting gimmicks to make it look like it was balanced. And it's going to affect, right now, elderly people as far as the Medicare is concerned.
Just briefly, I agree with Dr. Brittingham that some control is necessary. The issue really is, who do you want controlling the system? The government or private insurance companies motivated by profit? That's the system that Romney advocates. And frankly, I prefer the public sector to do the control. People whose interest is not milking as much money out of me as possible, but instead delivering fair and equitable health care to the population as a whole. Now, let's just talk about a few of the things that the Affordable Care Act actually has done. It's expanded access to free preventative services like flu shots, diabetes screenings, and mammograms to 54 million Americans. It's provided 13 million people more than $1 billion in rebates for being overcharged by their insurance companies. 100 million Americans saw lifetime caps on coverages lifted so that families have the security of knowing that their insurance will not end if their expenses increase above a certain level. 3.1 million Americans who were previously did not have access to their parents' health care insurance because they reached the cutoff age, now are covered. 5.5 million seniors who fell into the Medicare donut hole in the drug coverage have saved an average of $600 this year on prescription drugs.
Thank you, panelists.
Dr. Head,
Yes.
it's been suggested like a lot that we move to 3 minutes per question and keep the 1 minute rebuttal.
Okay.
Is that okay with everyone?
As long as you keep track.
I got it.
Our next question. Governor Romney says his background in business qualifies him to fix the economy. But Ted Turner says that having a background in business does not necessarily qualify someone to be president, citing his own experience. Is Romney more qualified than Obama to fix the economy? That's the question. Okay, let me start with this.
Sure. Let's first of all look at Governor Romney's background in business. Where were his interests? They were all personal interests. They were interests that caused him to invest in companies that did not have American interests at heart. What we look at when we see Governor Romney as a person who primarily was so out of touch with the general public that he suggested that small business starts somewhere around the $8 million threshold. When we look at small businesses around Memphis and in other places, we recognize that the average small business person is not making $8 million. We recognize that their annual sales is not nearly approaching $8 million. So Governor Romney's idea of being a business person is to come from a family where wealth has been passed on down through the generations, where government privilege and entitlement has been a part of his legacy, and use those benefits to add more to his personal coffers. That has not been the strategy that will work for the United States of America. Whenever we find some form of the former Reaganomics or a trickle-down economy that was suggested, which is really what Governor Romney wants to go back to, it takes us to a situation where you have a few people controlling the mass wealth in the United States of America, making decisions, and this is not good, because what happens at this point, when they see their personal wealth dwindling or being attacked in any way, they begin to take that money out of the market, they begin to put it away, and we get right back to the inflation situations that we have right now. We can't afford to extend the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts. These are also some things that Governor Romney wants to do with his particular business strategy. His background in business does not qualify him to be president any more than going to McDonald's makes him a cheeseburger or the hamburger or somebody. He just simply uses this as saying we have an economic problem right now. And by the way, I don't know that this is proven data as well, but this is part of like the scare tactics that the Republicans like to put out and overstate the problem. It would be like me saying, okay, I have a prop too, and I'd like to pass it around. It's an empty bottle of water. And so that's what we're saying Romney is about doing. We can't just continue to cloud the water with all of these scare tactics. We've got to bring real data to the table and sit down and have a real conversation. So I would agree with Ted Turner. His background does not qualify him anymore to be president of the United States because his interest has been proven to have been personal for his family, to protect wealth. He did not even make good decisions when it came down to the General Motors crisis. That's 1 or 2.
That's 30 seconds.
That's 30 seconds. With the General Motors crisis, he suggested that we should allow General Motors and the auto industry to go bankrupt and then to provide some form of structure after the fact. This would not have worked.
Well, for those of you who have been watching the real debates on TV, and we finished those up, I guess, last night, there's obviously a lot of issues going on, not only in our country, but around the world. But at the end of the day, this election is going to come down to the economy and jobs and which candidate is in the best position to do something about that issue. I think absolutely that Governor Romney is more qualified than President Obama to repair the economy, to get the economy going again. Barack Obama's got a rather impressive resume. I'll give him that. But one thing that's missing off that resume is any significant experience at all in the private sector. It's the private sector where jobs are created. It's the private sector where wealth is created. It's the private sector where the government gets its tax money from. Without the private sector and without the tax revenue from taxing income, the government dries up. The government goes away. So if we've got to find somebody, we have to have somebody, and that somebody is Governor Romney, to get our economy going again. Reverend Norman mentioned some of the things that have been on the upturn, I think was the word that's used here in the Obama administration. But one number he didn't talk about was the unemployment rate. It's still right at 8%. And here's another unemployment figure I'll throw out there that may hit a little closer to home. Right now, for recent college graduates under the age of 25, the underemployment and unemployment rate is right around 50%. And that's the highest that it's been in nearly, well, actually over a decade. So again, it's critical that we've got somebody with the experience that knows how to create jobs, that can translate that experience, that knowledge to the broader economy. Governor Romney has got the plan to do that. I certainly encourage everybody here to go to his website, mittromney.com, and check those plans out. They're very detailed, much more detailed than I can begin to get into. But if there's any questions about whether or not he's got that plan, it is there, and it's right there on his website. You've got to also keep this in mind, that at the end of the day, we're also looking for a leader, and a leader has to have those plans, and I think Governor Romney certainly is that person.
You have 30 seconds.
I'll take it. 1 minute. Governor Romney's website has changed about 4 times since this election started. Shortly after, Governor Romney said he would appoint more justices like Justice Roberts. However, Justice Roberts came out and said and ruled in favor of Obamacare. And on his website, he had this big, blog about saying I would appoint more justices like Justice Roberts. However, when Justice Roberts says, I'm using his 30 seconds, not my minute. Okay, and so when Justice Roberts said, I agree with Obama in the Affordable Health Care Act, now he takes Justice Roberts down. So we can't trust the website. We can't trust the policies of Governor Romney because they don't translate to a national agenda that we can trust.
A few minutes, a few seconds to respond? Okay. Well, first of all, on the Justice Roberts thing, I think that was a little bit of a surprise to pretty much everybody on the conservative side. But seriously, I mean, we're talking about these issues here, and that's what it comes down to. You can hear, about the 4 of us have this discussion up here tonight, but I mean, I encourage you to go look at what these candidates are saying, and again, look who has the plan, the very concrete plans to get this economy going again. Because again, at the end of the day, we've got the foreign policy issues, we've got the healthcare issues; those are big. But and I'm talking to all the recent college graduates, soon to be. When your underemployment rate and unemployment rate is close to 50%, obviously something has to be done about that. And somebody who's worked in the private sector, created thousands of jobs, is somebody who knows how to do that.
30 seconds.
When did 30 seconds keep coming?
It's like the government, we're like creating.
It's a fair second.
All right, while we're talking websites, there's the website for President Obama mentioned the great things that have happened in the Middle East and said that with the death of Obama, sorry about that. As we said, Al-Qaeda is on the run. They took that part, Al-Qaeda is on the run, down from their website very quietly a week ago. Things changed. Things changed. And I notice we are spending most of the time telling what's wrong with Romney because there really is not much to defend from the previous 4 years.
Okay. Thank you very much. If I can those issues at the end, we're going to have a little session outside at the end. You can follow up on these questions if you want to from our panel. Our next question. This campaign have run numerous negative ads on both sides. And a lot of them in states other than ours, but nevertheless they're running them. And it makes me feel like voting for either Obama or Romney would be a mistake in some way. At this point, I'm not sure if I should vote in this election at all. How can I make a choice between two candidates when it is difficult to separate the truth from politics in their ads and in their political speeches? Let's start with this.
Thank you. I think this is actually one of the most important questions submitted by you all for this debate. It touches on some, I think, central issues for us as citizens and for our country. There certainly is a great deal of misinformation that has been offered in this campaign. The genesis of much of it, I think, can be traced back to the presidency of George W. Bush. One of his advisors somewhat famously said in response to a reporter's query about some of the questionable claims made in support of the Iraq War, that they were not concerned about the reality-based community. Not concerned, that is, about the facts. Not concerned, that is, about the truth of the matter, but rather what sort of bill of goods could be sold to the American people that might convince them that the decision to go to war in Iraq was justified. We all know how that turned out. Unfortunately, we see in the Romney campaign a full-throated advocacy of this approach. Consistently, on position after position, President Romney, or candidate Romney, excuse me, has said many things only to later change his mind, contradict himself, or say that those remarks, for example, about the 47%, were intended for a private audience and not meant for public dissemination, that he didn't mean it. Now let me be clear, I'm not suggesting that the Romney campaign is the only one that has offered some falsehoods, some things that were less than true. In a campaign, those sorts of things happen. But I think there is a clear choice to make here, and it's a choice that's important for us to not just, as it were, have made for us, but to actively participate in making. There is a great deal of misinformation out there, but we live in an age where there is a great deal of information available as well. And part of your task here at the university is to educate yourself, to provide yourself with the tools necessary to discern the truth. I encourage you all to go out there and look at the facts, to make sure that you understand what the issues are before you make your decision. This is not something that we can count on or allow the parties to inform us about. We have to inform ourselves. So please do so. And use that information when you cast your vote.
You have 30 seconds.
Can I borrow that? No, I'm just kidding. This may be one topic that maybe both tables can agree on tonight, about the importance of informing ourselves as citizens, participating in the process. We are in the information age and have been there now for a number of years, and quite frankly, there is no, in my opinion, excuse for anybody to show up at the polling place and not know about who they're voting for, not know about the issues. I know everybody gets busy at times, but I firmly believe that it is incumbent upon us as citizens not only to go vote, but to go vote with an informed basis. It's very simple. That democracy is completely dependent upon an informed citizenry participating in the process.